Take a breath. Just pause for a moment before you keep scrolling. Because if you ended up here today, that was not random at all. It was not some coincidence or a random glitch in the feed. Something deep inside you was searching for this message, and somehow it found its way back to you. So stay here with me for a little while. I want you to think about this special person right now. Let their face come clearly into your mind, and notice what happens inside your body when you do. That soft pull in your heart, that mix of warmth, longing, and something you cannot fully explain. That feeling is not confusion. That is your heart recognizing something your mind is still trying to fully understand. Because this person is not just someone who entered your life by accident. On a deeper level, something within you already feels familiar with them. And I understand how exhausting it can be to carry a love this big when everything around it feels uncertain. All those nights you lay awake holding it quietly inside, wondering if you are reading too much into the signs, wondering if any of it even truly matters in the end. It does matter deeply. You are not naive or foolish. You are not too emotional or too intense. You are someone standing in the middle of something that is becoming meaningful. And that is exactly why it feels so heavy right now. If you feel strongly connected to someone, even when it hurts, share this so it can reach more people. What makes these kinds of connections so powerful is that they do not just touch the surface of who we are. They go straight into the parts of us we have spent years trying to control, hide, or survive with. Many people think love arrives like relief, like finally reaching calm water after struggling for so long to stay afloat. But the connections that truly transform us often arrive like a storm before they bring peace. They shake loose everything buried under old coping patterns, emotional defenses, pride, fear, and survival habits. And at first, that shaking can feel more like breaking than healing. When someone enters your life and touches parts no one else could reach, your usual defenses stop working. The one who always gave too much suddenly realizes how tired they are from constantly proving their worth and sacrificing their needs. They begin to question why they believed closeness must be earned through emotional exhaustion and endless patience. This realization hurts because it forces them to face the painful belief that love was never guaranteed just for existing. At the same time, the other person is dealing with a different fear, one shaped by emotional distance. Closeness has been tied to past pain, loss, or betrayal, so their nervous system treats intimacy like danger. They pull away, not because the connection is meaningless, but because the feelings become too intense to regulate. On the surface, it looks uneven, one person reaching, the other withdrawing. But underneath, it is two nervous systems reacting to the same fear of rejection and not being enough. The one who reaches believes love will disappear without effort, so silence feels unbearable. But they slowly learn that self-abandonment is too high a price for connection. Their worth is not measured by how much they can endure for someone else. Comment, "Destined," if you believe this connection is meant for you, even though everything feels stuck right now. The one who pulls away often carries the opposite wound. Deep inside, there is a belief that if someone gets too close, they will lose themselves, disappoint the other person, or get trapped emotionally. So they create distance automatically. But that space rarely brings peace. It often brings guilt, confusion, loneliness, and a clearer awareness of how much they actually care. Avoidance protects them from rejection for a while, but it also blocks them from receiving the love they secretly want. Healing is rarely smooth at the beginning. It can look like confusion, inconsistency, fear, emotional overwhelm, or silence while someone tries to understand themselves. Growth often looks messy before it looks clear. A caterpillar dissolves inside the cocoon before becoming something new. Transformation always requires an ending first. Not physical ending, but the ending of old identities, defenses, and beliefs that cannot exist in deeper love. That is why these connections can feel unbearable at times. They expose contradictions inside us. They show how much we want closeness, while also showing how afraid we are of it. They force us to understand the difference between attachment and real love. Attachment says, "Do not leave me because I need you to complete what is missing in me." Real love slowly becomes, "I want to meet you fully while staying whole within myself." And that changes everything. But here is the part you really need to hear clearly. This is what most people miss. In every one of these connections, there comes a turning point. It does not arrive as a dramatic moment or a perfect conversation. It does not happen because they finally say what you have been waiting to hear. It happens because of a quiet decision you make within yourself. The decision to stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself. And when that shift happens, something in the dynamic begins to change. Not because love is magic, but because the energy you bring into the space between two people always matters. When you stop reaching from fear or need, you stop becoming something that triggers withdrawal in the other person. Type yes if you are ready to understand what must change first before anything can come together. And for maybe the first time, they are left alone with what they actually feel. Not fear, not avoidance, but what is truly there. And what is there has not disappeared. Trust that. Let me be honest with you, and I need you to sit with this instead of skipping past it. Everything you have experienced in this waiting has meant something. Every moment of it carried weight. Not a single second was wasted. I know it may feel like that sometimes. I know there are moments when you look back at everything you have given and wonder if it just disappeared into nothing, if it mattered at all. But love does not vanish like that. It does not go nowhere. Every quiet evening spent thinking of someone not beside you. Every night you fell asleep holding feelings that had nowhere to go. None of it was in vain. That love is real. It is shaping you into someone who can hold something much greater when it arrives. When you cry because something feels right but painful at the same time, that is not weakness. Those tears show your heart refusing to abandon something it recognizes as meaningful. Most people walk away when things become uncertain or difficult, protecting themselves before they can be hurt further. It would have been easier for you to shut down, to build walls, to decide that feeling this deeply was too costly. Many people eventually do close off after being hurt or left waiting too long. But you did not. You stayed open when closing would have been easier. You stayed soft when hardening yourself was right there as an option. In a world that rewards emotional distance, your openness is not a weakness. It is strength. Loving fully without constantly calculating return is rare. It is the foundation of something real. You chose to stay, to feel, to keep caring, even when everything outside you said to stop. And that matters. But to love someone through confusion, through distance, through silence that stretches without answers, and to do it without becoming bitter, is not something ordinary. It cannot be faked. You either have that capacity or you do not. And if you do, it is not a small trait. It may be one of the most important parts of you. And it is exactly that part of you that is leading you somewhere real. Not toward a relationship where you constantly feel unstable, always analyzing, always unsure, always waiting for clarity that never comes. Not toward love that makes you feel too much or too difficult to hold. You are moving towards something that fits you, something that does not require you to shrink yourself or hide parts of who you are. A love that feels like a deep breath after holding tension for too long. That is not just a poetic idea. That is where things are going if you continue in this direction. So what does that actually look like in real life? What do you do today, tomorrow, and beyond with all of this? Here is the hardest and most important part. I will not soften it. You turn back toward yourself on purpose. Not as a performance, not as a strategy, not as a way to make them react, but honestly. You bring your energy back to your own life. You start asking yourself something you may not have asked in a long time. What do I actually need right now? Not what they need. Not what will fix things between you. Not what will bring them closer. What do you need? What would feel better for you today? What parts of your life have you ignored because your attention was stuck on something uncertain? You begin to refill those areas. You start saying yes to yourself with even a fraction of the energy you gave others. The things you postponed because you were waiting for things to settle, you begin again. Friendships you drifted from, you reconnect. Parts of yourself you put aside, you bring them back. This is not about pretending love is gone. It is not about forcing yourself to feel differently. It is about expanding your life again so you are not living inside a small emotional room built around one person. And when you start doing that, something shifts inside you. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but clearly. You stop feeling like an unfinished story waiting for an ending. You stop feeling like your life is paused. You start feeling whole again, even without certainty. That grounded feeling changes how you move in the world. People notice it, even if they cannot explain why. There is something powerful about a person who is no longer chasing completion outside themselves. It naturally draws things toward them instead of pushing them away. And yes, the person you care about will feel it too. This is not a tactic. Do not turn it into one. It is simply what happens when you stop relating from lack and start living from fullness. The entire dynamic breathes differently. Now I want to speak about them because you may need to hear this clearly. They are not the enemy in your story. They are not cold or indifferent. What looks like distance is often protection. Somewhere in their past, love became connected with danger, loss, or emotional risk. So closeness does not feel safe for them in the same way. And when something starts to feel real, their instinct is to step back, not because they do not feel, but because they feel too much without knowing how to hold it. And that is where the story pauses for now. They did not choose this consciously. No one really does. It is slowly built into a person through experiences that shape them long before they are even old enough to understand or explain what is happening inside them. What looks like someone pulling away from you is often not about you in the way it feels. It is usually them trying to manage a fear that has been living inside them for a long time, something older than the current moment, something that gets triggered in silence and closeness and emotional exposure. Comment healing if this message is reaching something deep in your chest right now, something you cannot easily put into words, but you can feel it strongly. They think about you in between distractions, in the quiet gaps of their day, when everything slows down enough that they cannot keep avoiding what is already there within them. And in those moments, you are there. Your presence, your memory, your emotional trace, it all returns. They feel the space you left, even in the moments when they were the ones who created that space in the first place. There is a kind of tension inside them when it comes to you. And that tension does not simply disappear just because there is no contact. Because what they are dealing with is not really about physical closeness or distance. It is something much deeper, something internal, something they have not fully understood or resolved yet. And that unfinished emotional work is not yours to carry. It is not yours to fix. You cannot fix it for them, no matter how much you care, no matter how clearly you think you can see what would help them heal, and no matter how much love you feel ready to give in order to guide them through it. That path belongs to them alone. What is actually in your control, and what holds real strength here, is choosing not to let their fear define how you see yourself. Not allowing their unresolved emotions to become a reflection of your worth. Not turning their confusion into your self-doubt. Instead, holding yourself with steady dignity and quiet self-respect, so that if and when they ever come through what they are struggling with, they meet you as someone whole. Not someone diminished by waiting, not someone emptied by longing, not someone who has abandoned themselves for the sake of uncertainty, but someone who is grounded, complete, and still standing fully in their own light. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a morning that is closer than you think. You wake up, and something feels different right away. The heaviness that used to sit in your chest is no longer there. That weight you became so used to that you almost stopped noticing it has finally lifted. Not because your feelings were erased, not because you stopped caring, not because you forced yourself into emotional distance. It is gone because something within you has settled. Because love has found a place where it is no longer chaotic or unfinished. Because what was once unresolved has finally moved into resolution. What once felt suspended in time is no longer waiting to become real. It is simply real now, existing without effort or confusion. Now imagine turning and looking at this person, really looking at them, and seeing something different in their expression, something you may not have seen before or may have forgotten existed. Not hesitation, not emotional conflict, not that quiet distance of someone who is physically present but internally elsewhere. Instead, you see calm, a grounded stillness. The quiet peace of someone who has made a clear choice and is no longer fighting themselves about it, no longer questioning it, no longer holding back parts of themselves in fear. Imagine what it would feel like to experience a love that does not wake you up at night with anxiety. A love that does not leave you replaying conversations, wondering what you said wrong, or what you should have done differently, or what might happen next. A love where your nervous system can finally relax instead of staying alert. Where you are not constantly scanning for signs, not preparing yourself for disappointment, not bracing for emotional uncertainty that never fully leaves. Imagine a love where the question of whether you are enough does not even arise anymore. Not because you convinced someone of your worth, but because you are with someone who never made your worth a question in the first place. Someone who sees you fully, not only the parts you present easily, but also the parts you struggle with, the parts you are still learning to understand, the parts you are healing. And they do not reject any of it. You are chosen with all of it, not in spite of it. That kind of connection is not a fantasy created to comfort you. It is the natural result of two people who have taken their own healing seriously. Two people who are no longer trying to use each other as a way to fix old wounds. Two people who are not entering love from a place of lack, but from a place of readiness. They are not expecting the other person to repair what life broke inside them. Instead, they are meeting each other as already responsible for their own emotional world, already aware of their own patterns, already committed to something real rather than something that just feels temporarily comforting. That is what is being shaped even now, inside the uncertainty, inside the waiting, inside the emotional unknown that you may currently be sitting in. Every time you choose yourself, instead of spiraling into worry, every time you return to your own center, instead of abandoning it for anxiety, you are building something stronger within yourself. You are laying down pieces of a foundation that will eventually support the kind of love that lasts. Do not let the difficulty of this middle phase convince you that your destination is not real. The middle is always the hardest part. The part where clarity feels far away and emotions feel unstable, where patience is tested and doubt becomes loud. But it is also temporary. It does end. And what you are moving toward is not temporary. It is not fragile. It is not dependent on confusion or timing errors or emotional immaturity. You are not late. You are not broken. You are not someone who is missing out while others receive what you cannot. You are in the middle of a deep, personal transformation that is quietly changing the direction of your entire life. It is not always visible from the outside, but it is happening in the small internal choices you make every day. Your story is not fading or winding down. It is still being written in the way you respond to fear, in the way you treat yourself when no one is watching, in the way you choose healing even when it feels uncomfortable. Every time you choose to care for yourself, instead of dissolving into emotional chaos, you strengthen something important inside you. Keep going, not because everything is already clear or easy, but because what is truly meant for you is not uncertain in its destination. It is already aligned with you. No amount of fear, distance, confusion, or wrong timing can permanently remove what is genuinely meant for your life. Look at where you are right now and make a quiet decision within yourself that you will not settle for less than what allows you to feel safe, seen, and valued. Not just occasionally, but consistently. You deserve the same steadiness and care that you naturally give to others, without having to shrink yourself, chase affection, or question your worth in order to receive it. If this message reached you in some way, take a moment to acknowledge what part of it stayed with you the most, even if you do not say it out loud.